We are to the halfway point of Nebraska's 2024 campaign, so it's finally time for me to go over my mid-season awards for the Huskers. This is going to be a good one. I have a lot of stuff planned. A lot of players going to be getting some much needed recognition and a lot of surprises along the way. So we have a lot to talk about in today's video. Make sure to hit that like button. If you're fired up about being 5-1 going into the bye week, I know I am. And hey, if you're new to the channel or just a returning viewer, make sure to subscribe. I post daily Nebraska football content, and I am not slowing down anytime soon. So make sure to subscribe. You will not regret it. But without further ado, let's get into it, going over my mid-season awards for Nebraska. I have a lot planned, so let's just dive in. My first award from Nebraska's first 6 games is the biggest surprise award, a player who honestly came out of nowhere. This is Dante Dowdell. So, of course, we got Dante from the transfer portal, of course, previously with the Oregon Ducks. We've heard a lot about him through spring ball, through fall ball, and it sounded like going into the season that he was buried in the depth chart. That guys like Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, Gabe Ervin were above him. So it was a shock to many when Dante Dowdell came out in that first game. It was running back 1, and he has been very good to begin this season. He's our rushing leader with over 330 yards, 5 touchdowns, and averaging 4.5 yards per carry. And just honestly, a bruiser running back. We haven't had a guy like him in a while who you feel very confident, hey, if I'm at the 1-yard line, I'm giving it to Dowdell, and he's going to go get me a touchdown. So he's been very, very good for Nebraska. Again, I will eat crow on this one. I'm sure a lot of you guys are eating crow too. Nobody expected this guy to play, just with how Matt Rhule and the coaching staff was talking about this running back room going into the season. But very happy he's playing at a high level. He gets the biggest surprise award within 6 games. Second award, my most underrated player for Nebraska. So a guy who honestly isn't getting enough love from the fan base, and when he gets on the field, he's playing at a very high level. This is Jalen Lloyd. Now, Jalen Lloyd barely gets snaps. At least he barely got snaps in those first couple games. He's getting a lot more over the last 2 weeks. But despite the fact that he's a bench player, he is 3rd on Nebraska's team in receiving yards, 6 catches, 181 yards. And like I've said over the season so far, it just feels like whenever he's in the ball game, he makes an impact. He makes a big play. And Jalen Lloyd constantly grading out as one of the better players on Nebraska's football team. I think he should get more reps in the back half of the year. Again, him and Ja'Cory Barney, those guys are dynamic. We are so lucky to have 2 players who run legit 4.3 40 times, who are slippery, who can get involved in a multitude of ways. You can get him a jet sweep, a little slip screen. So I want to see Jalen Lloyd get the football more because he's been balling out. And the Nebraska fan base, they're not showing him enough love. He's been playing well, so he gets my most underrated award. Speaking of a certain freshman, my best freshman award, not named Dylan Raiola, Ja'Cory Barney. Man, he has been incredible for Nebraska. Going to the statistics, he has 19 catches, which is 2nd on the team for 150 yards. And he also has a pair of rushing touchdowns. So, again, this guy just gets involved in a multitude of ways. The most dynamic freshman receiver we've had at Nebraska since Wan'Dale Robinson. So everybody needs to give Ja'Cory Barney his flowers, because this guy has been really, really good for Nebraska. And we're talking about a guy who's a perennial future All-American and All-Big Ten type of talent. Ja'Cory Barney is really, really good. You've got to lock him down in the summer, because there's going to be some teams trying to tamper and get him to, maybe a school in the SEC, trying to get him to enter the transfer portal. You got to lock him down. Whatever you're giving him at NIL money, bump it up, because you better believe schools are going to call. That's just how college football is nowadays. You got to defend and retain your talent. Let's go to the coaching staff. Best assistant coach within 6 games. So not a coordinator, so not Tony White, but a assistant coach, a player's coach, a positional coach. Terrence Knighton is my pick here. This guy has exceeded my expectations. I was nervous when we hired Terrence Knight. Now, I'm a Commanders fan, so he was previously with my Redskins in the past when he was playing in the NFL. So I've always known about Terrence Knight. I was always a big fan, but I was worried about him as a coach. Okay, yeah, he was a good player, but can he actually coach at a high level? he has been great. Not only is this defensive line good from a starting standpoint, but the depth is great. And we see guys like James Williams playing at a high level, Keona Davis playing at a high level, Elijah Judy, Cameron Lenhart, Sua Lafodu, guys who normally don't get reps. So everything is just clicking on this defensive line. And, talking with James Williams, what he said after the game, James Williams loves Terrence Knight. He said that Terrence Knight is basically like a dad to him, that he's just a great coach, a great man. That's what we're looking for from a defensive line coach. So Terrence Knight gets my best players coach or positional coach within 6 games. Let's go back to the players here for another award. Mr. Reliable, a guy who just shows up for every game. You don't have to question whether or not he's going to have a good performance. You already know he will. Ty Robinson. That feels good to say, because Ty Robinson was on the Mr. Inconsistency Award last year. He was super inconsistent. He'd play well in one game and not show up the other game. He's been Mr. Reliable this year for Nebraska. Every single game, his stat line is packed. And when he's not really on the stat line, he's still making plays. He's still getting to the quarterback, getting pressures, getting to the running back, and he's getting double-teamed every now and then. And when you get double-teamed and you're not showing up on the stat sheet, it opens up opportunities for other players on this D-line. So Ty Robinson, I believe he's going to be around a 3rd, 4th round draft pick for Nebraska in the spring. He's been balling out. He's been proving to every NFL scout, hey, I need to get paid. I need to get paid, because he's been balling out. All right. I'm going to go over the best player at every single position for Nebraska. Then I'm going to be going over my offensive and defensive MVP. So starting it off, best player at every position for the Huskers within 6 games. Raiola, obviously, best quarterback. That's not a shocker. He's the only quarterback who's played. At running back, I'm going to go with Rahmir Johnson. So, of course, I was in between him and Dowdell, but looking at the stats when it comes to Rahmir, I just feel like he's been the most dynamic athlete for Nebraska. He adds a little bit of burst. He can get involved in the pass pro. He's the best blocker when it comes to the running backs in that group. I just think he just really gives Nebraska a spark. Now, am I saying he should start? No, but I'm saying he's been the best performing running back for Nebraska, in my opinion, in 6 games, especially watching him on film. That guy just really gives Nebraska a second level. In the receiver core, I was in between Isaiah Nair. I'm going to give it to Jamal Banks, though. Jamal Banks has more catches on the year with 21, right around 280 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Jamal Banks has just been a lot more consistent the last couple of games. Of course, Isaiah Nair had a really good week 1 and week 2, but Jamal Banks has been more consistent as of recently, so he gets that award. Best offensive lineman, I'm in between 2. Bryce Benhart has graded out the best according to Pro Football Focus, but he's gave up a lot of hurries, and he's gave up a couple crucial penalties. I'm in between him and Micah Mazuka. Listen, Micah Mazuka, we can call it what he is off the field, but he's a great offensive lineman. He has not had any penalties so far this year. He's really not given up too many sacks. I don't think he's given up any sacks on the season. He's graded out very well according to Pro Football Focus as well. This guy needs to start. Micah Mazuka needs to start. I've been very adamant about it. I don't care about the off-the-field stuff. Micah Mazuka's a good kid. Okay, he's an introvert. He's not a rah-rah type of guy, but he's emotional. If you get in his face, he'll talk back. So this whole narrative that he's a bad part of the culture, I don't get. Again, I'm not going to go on a tangent about it. It's a conversation for another day. But Micah Mazuka and Bryce Benhart get my offensive lineman, best offensive lineman within 6 game award. Defensive lineman, Ty Robinson, not a shocker there. Linebacker, John Bullock, not a shocker there. Those guys have played very well at their positional group. And then in the secondary, I'm going to give it to Tommy Hill because of how well he played versus Colorado and honestly the UTEP game as well. But Sear Wright, very, very close second with last week's performance. But Tommy Hill, when he's healthy, we know how good he is. He's a first-round cornerback. All right, offensive MVP, Dylan Raiola gets that nod. Again, he's just been really, really playing well. He didn't have a good week last week, but versus Colorado, versus UTEP, he was the X factor. A lot of the other pieces on offense haven't been very consistent. The offensive line hasn't been consistent. Wide receiver play hasn't been consistent. Running back play has not been consistent. Rhule is the only thing for the most part that has been consistent, so he gets that award. On defense, there's a lot of guys I've went about and tried to think, okay, who's been playing the best? Ty Robinson, Nash, Jamari, maybe even a guy like Tommy Hill. John Bullock is going to get my defensive MVP within 6 games. This guy has been playing on a different level. And a guy, honestly, I wasn't too high on him in the offseason. Really wasn't. He wasn't coming after a really good, or he wasn't coming out of a really good 23 campaign. So I didn't know how well he would play this year, but he leads the team in tackles with 33, has 2 sacks, has an interception, has a forced fumble. This guy's all over the stat sheet. He's been playing very well. I'm very excited for John Bullock, and I'm excited to watch him get on the field for the second half of the season. So, all right, guys, those are my mid-season awards for Nebraska. The Huskers are 5-1. You'll take that every single day of the week. Going into Indiana, that'll be a big-time game. So let me know down below, what are some awards that you've come up with? Guys who are playing well, guys who aren't, let me know in the comment section. And hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go be great, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.